My brother, it's his superpower is making stillness time.
Interesting.
He's very disciplined about this. He is very disciplined about time to think.
Tell me how he does that. Like, tell me a little bit more. Like, what if I was watching him, what would it look like?
Well, you would actually think at the surface it's quite selfish, right? He'll say, for the next 2 hours, I don't, he'll tell his wife and his kids, like, I need to be left completely alone.
Yeah.
And I need to go for a walk with no phone, with no anything. And I'm gonna walk in the fields. He lives on a farm, and he's like, and I'm going to just be with my thoughts and with nothing else. And then I can come back and do my best work.
Yeah.
But he forces that in. And I think I am convinced that all of us could do better work if we did that. And yet I struggle to do it. There's a bit of a trap that I fall into, which is, yeah, but think about how much more I could get done in those 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the 2 hours to be still.
Right. So Cal Newport has done a lot of work on this.
Yep.
And one of the mistakes that we make, and this is just a cognitive heuristic that we fall into, is that we look at some types of activities as being unproductive because they don't yield immediate dividends, right?
This actually is part of the whole habit system.
Absolutely.
Like,
It absolutely is. It's about building those habits to recognize deep productivity, deep work, right?
Yep.
And so one of the things that I'm sure it happens to me, I'm sure it happens to you, is that I say, if I go take a walk in the woods for 2 hours, like, what do I have to show for it, right? There's whereas if I sit down and I pound through these emails for 2 hours, suddenly my inbox is half the size it used to be. It feels
right.
really
Feels
like
great.
an accomplishment. Now, of course, all that does is create more emails for me. And it turns out half of those I could have ignored. But so what I need to do is I need to train my brain, and my brain oftentimes doesn't believe me, right? I know intellectually taking that walk in the woods is going to yield dividends, that I'm going to be able to do better work. But my brain, there's a part of my brain that looks at my stated preferences, what I believe and want to be true, and another part of my brain that looks at revealed preferences. How do I actually behave? And that revealed part of my brain is saying, you never take walks. Like, you always sit down and do your email. You must think that doing email is more valuable than taking a walk. So I have to convince that revealed preferences part of my brain, no, the walk is really good. Like, if I take this walk, I'm gonna get more work done. I'm gonna be able to get through those emails faster because I'm gonna hit delete on more of them. This actually is a productivity enhancer. We have to hack our own brains sometimes. We have to remind ourselves of a reward. Oftentimes the salience of a reward increases simply because we tell ourselves it is a reward. And we have to take advantage of that to try and sometimes play with our own brain, because we'll act sometimes in not our best interests.
And so what do you think is the relationship then between productivity and habit? How implicit and how explicit is it?
So I think it's huge. But let me be very clear how I mean that, because oftentimes the things that we do out of habit are not the productive things, but our habits can set us up to be productive. As I mentioned before, the most important element of productivity is deep thought, right? Because making the right choice, making the right decision, spending my time on the right task right now yields many more dividends than simply getting something done. It's the difference between productivity and busyness. So the question is, how do I set myself up to make better choices? Well, the way that I do that is I build habits that give me not only the time and space to make a choice, but the prompt to make a choice. Because there's a lot of times that I'm going to avoid making a choice if I can. My brain doesn't like making choices. It's energy. It costs energy. It feels like it's depleting me. So my brain is going to say, oh, you walked in the cafeteria, like, don't get the salad, just get the sandwich you get every single time. You know you're going to like it, right? So how do I build a habit that allows me the space to make that choice and the prompt to make that choice? That's why habits are so important, is not because they make us productive. It's because they allow us to be productive.
Say more about the decision fatigue, because I think that's something that many people listening to us right now can relate to. I have become much more aware of it in myself recently. And I don't think it's age related per se. I think it's just complexity related. So the
Absolutely.
more things you're juggling, the more I find myself unable to make simple decisions. And it's like, I can't tell you how internally frustrated I get sometimes when I'm asked to make decisions.
So there's two things happening there. And you're exactly right that decision fatigue is real, right? We've seen it actually at this point, hundreds of studies, that the more decisions you have to make in a day, the more fatigued you get. But there's some elements that play into this. The first is structuring decision design. So President Obama, in one interview, he said that the most important habit that he developed when he was president is he bought 12 of the same suits and shirts. So every morning when he woke up, he knew exactly what he was going to put on. It's the same. There's no other options in his closet. He just has to grab one of them.
Yep.
And he said the reason why is because the day was so exhausting with decisions, and each of the decisions he made was so important that he had to preserve his ability to make decisions. So, and avoid that fatigue. So the first thing is, how do we design our decisions so that we're only having to make the important ones and we're making the less important ones automatic, things where we don't have to make a choice, right? The second thing that happens there is that decisions are harder to make in a hot state than they are in a cold state. So if you're hungry and you go into the cafeteria, it's going to be a lot harder for you to choose that really healthy salad over that really tasty sandwich because you're in a hot state.
Yep.
Now, in a cold state, that morning when you just had breakfast, if you say my implementation intention is I'm going to eat a salad today, when I walk in, I know which salad I'm going to get. It's a lot easier to make that decision. So here's what I think is happening when your wife says that to you. Two things. Number one, you don't have a mental heuristic in place to say, I'm going to curate the decisions I have to make. Because if you had that, and you probably do now, but like the first time it comes up, you don't have the heuristic. And the heuristic is when my wife asks me where to go to dinner, I'm just going to choose one of them. I'm not even going to like think about like which one is the best one. I'm just going to choose one, right? So I'm going to create a decision structure for myself that allows me to focus on the most important decisions and ignore the smaller ones. Secondly, I'm going to ask her not to ask me to make that decision at the end of the day when I'm exhausted and I've been making choices all day long.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, look, I'm in a hot state right now. I can't think about where to go to dinner. I'm thinking about other stuff. But if you ask me 2 hours from now, after I've had a beer and I've started watching TV, I think I'll be ready to answer that question.
I'm Peter Attia. This podcast relies exclusively on premium subscribers for support, which allows us to provide all our content without taking a single penny from advertisers. I believe this keeps my content honest, making it a trusted resource for listeners like you. As a premium member, you'll get immediate access to our entire back catalog of AMA episodes and all future AMA episodes. You'll get longevity-focused premium articles packed with actionable insights. You'll get unrivaled show notes for each and every episode of The Drive, every topic, every study, every resource from each episode carefully curated for you. You'll get quarterly podcast summaries where you'll learn my biggest personal takeaways from the previous 90 days of expert guest episodes and much more. This journey doesn't have to be navigated alone. We can take these steps towards a better, longer life together. Become a premium member today at peterattiamd.com/subscribe to join me in a shared commitment to a healthier future.